This is a PokePress special report. Hi, I'm Stephen Reich from the PokePress PIRN Studios in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm on the phone with Ralph Schuckett, who was involved for much of the first 8 seasons of the Pokemon TV show, but in particular he did the dub scores for the first 3 Pokemon movies. But before we get into that, Ralph, first of all, how did you get into music? Growing up, did you play any instruments, or how did that work out?
Well, my parents played a lot of music in the house, and we had a piano, and I have an older sister who listened to music pretty much 24/7. So I was exposed to all different kinds of music, and I'm told that even when I was, I don't know, a toddler or maybe a year and a half, 2 years old, I would sit in front of the stereo and just kind of rock back and forth to the music. So I started messing around with the piano. My parents found me piano teachers, and I took lessons for a few very short periods, and none of the teachers, I was totally bored and didn't enjoy it at all, but I liked to sit at the piano and make up my own stuff. So I just messed around by myself. And then when I got into high school, there were other musicians who went to school with me, and they knew that I played a little, and so they asked me to join their bands. So I was in I think 3 or 4 different bands when I was in high school, and that's when I really started sort of taking notice of my playing and of songwriting and stuff like that. I had always enjoyed music, and I had always made up music and heard it in my head, but that was the first time I really sort of did anything with it. And I started to listen to music in a more analytical way, so I could figure out what everyone was doing whose music I liked, so I could try and figure out how to play what they were playing. And I would take apart the arrangements, and I'd focus on, what's the bass player doing? What's the drummer doing? What's the guitar player doing? And I really just trained my ear, I guess. I trained myself, and I so that I could eventually pick out chords and pick out melodies and all these different parts. And then I started writing music for my bands, or if we were doing covers, I ended up being the arranger kind of the covers, because I had all these ideas on how to do them, and the other guys were just pretty much copying the record. And so I started, suggesting, why don't you play this, and then, I'll play this part, and the drums will do this. And so I always had kind of a composer-arranger point of view.
And then once you got out of high school, graduated, you started to become a professional musician. What was that like?
Well, it was amazing. I was still playing in various bands, and the caliber of the bands kept improving. And a girl I went to high school with told me about this band that was signed to Elektra Records, a band called Clear Light, and they were produced by the same guy who produced The Doors and Janis Joplin, this guy Paul Rothchild, and they were signed to the same label as The Doors, and they were looking for another guy because their guitar player had quit, and they'd never thought about a keyboard player, but my ex-girlfriend kind of talked them into auditioning me, and so I went to audition for Clear Light, and they liked me, and I joined the band. And from then it was sort of a snowball, because then I got to learn more about what it was like being a professional and being in a recording studio and, writing songs and touring. And I just would meet people. It wasn't even at the beginning really deliberate networking. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I'd meet all these various people who were in the business. And one thing sort of led to another, and eventually, I guess, from word of mouth, I started getting recommended to play on recording sessions, play keyboards, piano, or organ. And the most prominent ones at that time were, I was in Carole King's band, and I played with her and James Taylor for about 2 or 3 years, and I think I did 3 tours with them, 2 of the United States and 1 of Europe, and then, the people in those band who played with them were on a much higher level, and then they got me gigs, and they recommended me for other things, and, working with Carole King and James Taylor, these 2 amazing songwriters, I just learned so much from them, and I had so much concert experience, and, just snowballed. And then, I guess in 1972, I can't even remember. I moved to New York in 1972. I was living in Los Angeles where I grew up, and I moved to New York in 1972. And I didn't really know anybody. I had one friend who was a musician. He introduced me to a bunch of people, and then I started all of a sudden. I joined his band, and then all of a sudden I started playing on a lot of record dates in New York, and I just got busier and busier, and I had a profession as a composer.
This has been a PokePress special report.